On today's episode, Eddie and Webbie disprove the theory of relativity. This is the Eddie and Webbie Podcast.
Oh, hey, how's it going? This is Webby, not Eddie.
And I'm Eddie, and this is our 9th podcast.
Oh, yeah, episode number 9. And for the folks that are listening to our show in reverse, Nyanerman, Nyanerman, Nyanerman. We got to be considerate to our backwards listeners. I mean, I feel like we haven't been really thinking about them this whole time, so that was for you, my friends.
Yes, for you guys that listen to us backwards. We made it through episode 1 through 8, and now we are at 9. Super excited about this. This is usually the time when Webby reads to us Twitter comments, but I think Webby's got something different in mind today, don't you?
Yeah, so actually, the format of today's show is going to be a little different, and the reason for that is we have a historic moment here for the Eddie and Webbie show. We are going to have our first ever guest on the show. Oh, yeah.
So Webby found us a guest that is not only big into pickleball, but also craft beer as well.
And it's somebody that I found on Instagram. I had noticed a group called Pickle and Pints, and it intrigued me. So I reached out to them on Instagram to see if the founder of the organization would be interested in joining us. And we have him here with us today. So, Andrew, how's it going?
Doing well, guys. Nice to see you, Eddie and Webbie.
Yeah, thanks, man. So glad you could join us. This is awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a groundbreaking moment for us for our show here. We've been wanting to have a guest for a while, and it finally worked out to get a guest on. Here we go.
Yeah. So real quick, Andrew, why don't you tell us about Pickle and Pints and kind of what it is and you know how you started it?
Yeah, so I've been in the pickleball business from a retail standpoint for about a year. I work for a sporting good retailer that's home base is in Houston, and I am the assistant buyer for golf equipment and racket sports, which is tennis, racquetball, and pickleball. And so pickleball just kind of got dropped in my lap probably I guess a year ago, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. I'd never heard of it before, and it's nice that I get to see it from two different sides, from like the retail side, and then Pickle and Pints came from. I went to like a yoga class with one of my friends, and it was at a brewery, and it was the same kind of concept that I'm doing right now, where you go, you pay a fee, and you get like an hour's worth of yoga, and then they throw in a beer at the end. And I was like, why couldn't I do that with pickleball and do the same thing, as long as I can find a place that has, enough room to have a court or two, or, I mean, there's even a place that I've had it at that has 4 courts or enough room to have 4 courts. So yeah, that was kind of the start of it. I had my first event March 18th of this year, and it's been so much fun since then.
Wow. So this is pretty recent for you then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've played pickleball like starting this year, and that's it. So definitely new to the game.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm actually pretty new to the game as well. Eddie is the one that introduced me to pickleball. He told me probably about 2 years ago. He told me about it, and I thought he was crazy. Like, what the heck is pickleball? It sounds ridiculous. But
right.
He told me about it. He said it was super fun. And then about a year later, a pickleball court got put up not too far from my house. It used to be 3 tennis courts, and it got converted into 6 pickleball courts.
Exactly.
So I grabbed 3 friends from work and talked them into learning how to play with me, and I got hooked on it instantly. It's such a fun game.
It's so cool that you can pick it up in like 5 minutes. Like, you can't, after an hour's worth of tennis lessons, you're probably not very good at all. But you get 10 minutes with somebody instructing you how to play pickleball, and it's like you're ready to go.
Yeah. Right. And I never really played tennis much. I think I would have liked it, but I've got some bad knees. I've had multiple knee surgeries, and I tried playing tennis a few years ago, and it was just too rough on my knees. But pickleball, with it being like half the size of a tennis court, it's absolutely perfect.
Definitely.
You know, Andrew, being a craft beer guy, what do you say we crack open maybe a couple Two-Hearteds?
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Yep, so like Eddie said, today we will be drinking Two-Hearted Ale from Bell's Brewery.
Yeah, this is actually the second Bell's beer we've done on this podcast. Our very first episode was Bell's Oberon.
Oh, Oberon's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had I lived with a buddy for about 4 years, and he was from Grand Blanc, Michigan, and he brought a case of Oberon back. He took like a road trip back there over the summer to go to Torch Lake, and he brought this back, and he was like, this is the summer beer of summer beers, and he was not lying. Like, I mean, we drank that whole case, I think, that night. Sure. Oberon is super good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, it is a great summer beer. I love drinking it when I'm outside, especially like at the beach or on a hot day, just chilling outside. That is definitely a go-to for me in hot weather.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, cheers, man.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah. You know, I actually went to college in Kalamazoo, where Bell's is from, and so I got to drink a lot of good craft beer.
So you're is it a bulldog? Is that what the mascot is? Is that Ferris State?
That's Ferris State you're thinking of.
Okay.
Broncos, Western Michigan University Broncos.
Western Michigan. All right. So yeah, I had a couple of guys that I worked with. One went to Western Michigan, and the other went to Ferris State. So yeah, it's a little bit of a Michigan connection for sure.
Nice, man. That's awesome. So what other Bell's beers have you had?
I honestly, I know that I've had like two other ones. I can't remember the names of them. Shoot a couple names out, and maybe you can jog my memory.
Well, Oberon Two-Hearted, that's probably their most famous ones that they have. One of my favorites is the Kalamazoo Stout, which is just a great, easy drinking stout that I personally love. Nice. And then Hop Slam. I know, Webby, that's one of your favorite beers.
Hop Slam, that's right.
Yeah.
Do you get that down in Houston?
Yeah, I actually just saw it at the grocery store when I was getting the Two-Hearted.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's a beer that gets very difficult to find. I actually feel like this year was the easiest year to be able to find Hop Slam in the stores. I think they made more than usual.
That's good.
But yeah, Hop Slam is a great one.
For sure.
Yeah, I was just, before we got on here, I was watching the episode from last night, and I saw you guys doing Oscar Blues, which is funny because I grew up in Colorado in a town called Lafayette, which is this town just south of Longmont where the brewery is now, and just east of Boulder. So it's definitely near and dear to my heart.
That's awesome.
Very
man.
Cool.
So what took you from Colorado down to Texas then?
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado, lived there till I was 20, and then moved out to San Diego to get a degree in golf.
Wow.
Nice.
So yeah, it was nice, man. It was a great way to move out there, go to school. I actually had an accredited class every Monday where I had to show up and play 18 holes of competitive golf. So, that was good.
Yeah.
I did that. I moved to San Jose to be a caddy up there for a while, and then the same caddy company that I was with had a couple of courses down here in Houston, and I was just like, I'll go try it and see what happens. And so that was 2004 is when I moved down here, and been here ever since.
That's awesome, man.
Nice. Yeah, Eddie and I went and visited Colorado last year. It was such a great trip. I love Colorado.
Great place to live. Yep.
Now, one thing, you had mentioned golf. I'm not much of a golfer, but one thing I do absolutely love is disc golf, and that's huge here in Michigan and Colorado. Have you ever played disc golf?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah. There's a course that's right next to where I grew up. It's around this really cool lake. And yeah, I mean, disc golf and craft beer have been with me for a while.
Nice.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I would say 3 of my favorite things in life are pickleball, disc golf, and craft beer.
Yeah, solid. Why haven't we started hanging out before now?
Right, exactly.
Question,
Yeah, for sure. Has pickleball picked up at all in Colorado?
You know what? It has. I've talked to my parents. They definitely at rec centers and YMCA's. I mean, that's definitely where it's the biggest. It's a little slow. I think it's a little slow in Houston. There's a couple of kind of local pickleball groups that I've connected with here that have actually like really supported the business from the beginning. The first event I ever had, it was like 33 people showed up. I was like, I'm going to try this. And then I was like, this like tidal wave of football players just came out of nowhere. It was great. I was like, wow, this is, I'm onto something here. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely been well received so far.
That's great, man.
I think you had either liked or commented on one of our Instagram posts, and I saw Pickle and Pints, and it grabbed my attention, so I clicked on it. And when I saw what you guys were all about, it immediately fascinated me, and it sounded perfect. I mean, it's like the perfect blend of things: craft beer and pickleball. I mean, come on.
Exactly, and the hashtag that I always close everything off with on Instagram is first we dink, then we drink.
Nice.
So yeah, no, I thought that was super fitting. So yeah,
I love that.
They always say, people that are successful, find things that they're passionate about and blend them together. And it's like, what a better time, the pickleball is obviously the fastest growing sport in the country. I think there's close to 3 million people playing right now. And it was interesting when I first started meeting with like sales reps, they would all come in and they all did this gesture, like 8 guys in a row over like a couple of weeks, all did, pickleball's on a trajectory like this. And, just to hear, cause the sports, the sporting goods industry is there's not really new sports, out there every day. But this is certainly one of them. Not that it's new. I mean, obviously it started in the 60s, in Washington, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's totally accessible. I have 3 kids. And, we all go play together, and, every time I go to a local YMCA, there's people that are 75 years old just kicking my ass.
Oh yeah.
When I'm out there, so it's like, it's like golf. You can play it from young to old.
Absolutely. And a few weeks ago, my brother from out of state was in town with his wife, and they kept hearing me talk about the game, so I taught them how to play. My dad, who is 72, he was with us. I taught him how to play, and then my 2 daughters, who are 11 and 13 years old, I taught all of them to play at the same time, and we had a blast, and all of us were, I mean, I've got more experience than all of them, but we still had a great time, and they were all pretty much on an even playing field. It was awesome.
Definitely. Yeah, it's totally what you make of it. Like, you can have a super relaxed game just playing at the kitchen line, knocking it back and forth, or you can really get at it. I mean, it is what you make of it for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So can you talk a little bit about how you set up the courts and the events that you're doing with Pickle and Pints? Like, what does that whole process look like?
Yeah, it's literally just a bunch of blue painter's tape and a big long tape measure. I go out there a couple hours early with a leaf blower and make sure that everything, there's no sand or anything on the area, and just kind of mark everything out with chalk, and then go by and literally it's I think it's like 188 feet worth of blue painter's tape, and just lay it down. I've got 4 pop-up nets that are regulation size that I just set up, and that's basically it. I've got a handful of paddles for anybody who wants to check it out, try it out. And that's always the coolest part. Like, people are always standing around with their kids like, what is this? And it's like, oh, it's life-size ping pong. Like, if tennis and racquetball and ping pong had a strange love story together, like that, pickleball would be its love child.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's cool. So have the breweries been very receptive to it? Have they been open and really welcoming of that?
Yeah. So I've done it. I've done it at 2 breweries. I just had my 4th event, and then my 5th will be this coming Sunday. And this brewery, it's called Backfish Brewery. It's in a town called Pearland, which is just south of Houston, maybe 20-30 minutes. And they were super cool. They have this real nice straight stretch of really nice concrete behind the brewery, and it's like 30 feet wide by 100 feet long, and it's in the shade, which when you're in Houston, it's definitely a plus. So it's not like playing on the surface of the sun. So yeah, I mean, they've been super receptive and open and just, really willing to try something new, which is cool.
Very cool.
So where do you go play? I know you're in different parts of the country. Are there courts that are close to where you guys are at?
Yeah, so I actually have 4 courts in my community about 150 yards away from me down here in Naples. Naples is one of the kind of the hot places for pickleball right now. We sponsor the U.S. Open every year and about 6 other tournaments.
That's what I was going to say. It's in Naples. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I keep hearing that Naples is the pickleball capital of the country.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah. And then, when we first moved down here about 4 years ago, I had never heard of it. And then I started to hear about it. And when we moved here, I started playing with a lot of my neighbors. And that's really how I got into it. About 3 years ago, I just started playing with neighbors and then immediately got hooked on it. So I play there 3 to 4 times a week, usually at night. We do have lights in the court, which is great. So we can play into the night as well.
And for me, like I was saying earlier, last year I saw that there was a park in Canton, Michigan called Freedom Park, and they had just built some brand new courts. So there's 6 pickleball courts there. So I brought my 3 friends from work. We learned how to play. But after that, I struggled to find people to play consistently with me. And I probably went like 4 or 5 months without playing after I had first learned how to play. And then I joined some Facebook groups and learned that the USAPA has this thing called Places to Play. They have like a website and an app that actually it'll show you where on the map places are that have open pickleball play. And that was a huge eye-opener for me because I learned that there were actually a lot of places near me that have open pickleball play. But the main problem was it was catered to retired people. It was always usually in the morning or afternoon.
I don't want to play pickleball at 5:30 in the morning.
Right.
Sorry,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of us work still, so we still want to play, but we can't play during the day when these people are playing. So luckily my job, I do get, I have late shifts so I can play in the mornings every once in a while without a problem. But I wanted to play more regularly, so I started a meetup group. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Meetup app.
Yeah,
and
I was just looking at that this week. Yeah, absolutely.
And that thing has been awesome. About 4 weeks ago, I started a meetup group for that park in Canton to play every Wednesday evening from 6 to 8:30. And I've gotten a very overwhelming response. There's 6 courts, and before I did the meetup, we had 5 of us that showed up, and that was considered a good amount of people up until that point. And ever since the meetup group got submitted and sent out there, all 6 courts have been used. Sometimes by 4 people on each court. Sometimes it's just a one-on-one. But last week it was every court had 4 people on it, and it was awesome. So it's been great. And somebody that was there told me that it's still it's fairly new to Michigan. I guess somebody brought it from Florida only 5 years ago to Michigan, but each year it's gotten bigger and bigger.
Love it. Yeah, it just grows like a wildfire.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Nice, man.
Yes, yeah. Like, have you guys seen the concepts like chicken and pickle? That's kind of like where I drew some inspiration from. It's Kansas City, Missouri. And they have 4 indoor courts that are in like a big shed, essentially. And then 4 outdoor courts. They've got like life-size battleship. They do like fried chicken. They have a concert stage on the second story of the restaurant. And they're just like absolutely just printing money there from what I hear. And there's another place that's just about to open up in Des Moines, of all places, I think West Des Moines, Iowa.
Wow.
Called Smash Park DM, and it's the same kind of concept. So, I mean, there's, it's kind of like this whole like experiential dining thing that's kind of taken a hold. I know that there's a place that just opened up in Houston that's like a soccer bar. One of the players for the Houston Dynamo went in with a group, like a real estate group, and developed this concept. So, I mean, it's out there for sure. It's cool that it's pickleball is like applicable to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And something I recently learned of here in Michigan, there's a place called Peachtree Tennis Club. It's in Clinton Charter Township, Michigan, and they do it, I think it's at least monthly, maybe even a couple times a month, and they have a whole bunch of indoor tennis courts that they have taped off for pickleball, and it's awesome. They always have food provided. You have to pay a certain fee to get in, but there's food,
right,
drinks. You can bring your own alcohol if you want to, and there's tons of courts, and like it was overwhelming to me when I got there. I couldn't believe it, and the place was full. I mean, they have, I want to say, at least 30 courts, and almost all of them were full. It was amazing. I wish it was closer to my house, because I would go there regularly. But it's awesome.
Yep.
So since you get access to all the best equipment from the retail side of it, what is the best paddle in pickleball?
Oh, man. I mean, I've got it right here. Hold on. This is what I'm rocking. The Selkirk S2 amped. I mean, obviously, that's definitely on the higher end. I think Paddle Tech is doing some really cool things. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the next year. There's some rumblings of them with a well-known tennis brand that they're going to make into pickleball. So it'll be interesting to see what they do to kind of disrupt that. Obviously, Engage makes solid paddles. I mean, they make Olive Wilson's paddles now. So yeah, I mean, I don't have. I know that I love playing with that paddle, but I mean, outside of that, I think it's a lot of preference. Short grip, long paddle, thin. I mean, I think it's interesting the whole 24 inches that length and width that the paddle can be, and how creative the companies are getting with the different shapes that they're putting on the paddles out there.
That's cool. It's good to know.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you, kind of shifting things back over to the beer world. What would you say your favorite style of craft beer is?
I mean, I'm a big pale ale guy. I think if you can go in, because there's some crummy pale ales out there, but if it's done right, if it's not too sweet, but you still get a little bit of the hoppiness in it. That's kind of how I measure when I go to different breweries. Like, I'll always have that one first, and I feel like it gives me a pretty good radar as to the kind of style or flavors that you're going to get from each different brewery.
For sure.
What about you guys?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. I would put pale ales at the top of my list. I love a good pale ale.
Yep.
What about you, Eddie?
Yeah, I mean, it varies on the day, but I guess if I had to pick a style, I'd probably pick IPAs. I just think that what these breweries have been able to do with hops and kind of finding balance within that style of beer is pretty incredible. But I also love a good sour. Jolly Pumpkin out of Ann Arbor, one of my favorite breweries of all time. You can't go wrong with a good sour beer as well. So it's hard for me to pick, but those are my two, I would say.
Yeah, I always hate picking a favorite of anything because it really depends on the mood I'm in. I do love a good sour too, but I've really got to be in the right mood for a sour. I would say, like, consistently, pale ale would be at the top of my list as well.
Nice, man. So how long have you been into craft beer for?
Oh gosh. I mean, I remember drinking Fat Tire back in, when I was not quite 21. So,
sure.
What?
Yeah, I know. Shame on me. I've been into craft beer for a long time. It's definitely, so interesting from, a science perspective, what can be done with just a couple of ingredients. I know Colorado State, where I went to school for a little bit, they have a whole degree program now in just brewing. Like you can come out of there with a bachelor's, and I don't know what the technical name for it is, but full on brewer. Yeah, I mean it's fantastic. It's just science at its finest, chemistry.
Yep. Do you have any brewing experience at all? Have you homebrewed?
I haven't. You know what? It's like I don't have any tattoos, and I haven't homebrewed, and I think just because if I did both of them, I'd have like a quarter sleeve in like a month's time, and that I would probably drink all my product. So yeah, it's I haven't. What about you guys?
So I started off as a home brewer, and kind of like what you talked about, I was immediately hooked. You know the story. It's a cliche. My wife got me a homebrew kit for Christmas, and next thing you know, I'm spending hundreds, thousands of dollars on equipment. But yeah, to be honest with you, I don't get to brew nearly as much anymore, and it's probably because of the fact that I pick pickleball over brewing.
Yeah, and it's funny because I mentioned how Eddie is the one that introduced me to pickleball. And also, if it wasn't for Eddie, I probably wouldn't be a craft beer fan because he was always brewing up some craft beers, having me try it, and they were absolutely delicious. So I started finally developing a taste before him giving me the opportunity to try his craft beers. The craziest thing I drank was Bud Light Platinum.
Yep.
I was all about Ice House, Corona, and Bud Light Platinum. That was about the extent of my beer drinking.
Welcome to the light, my friend.
Oh yeah, like
for sure.
When I drink that, like if that's the only option, and I go back to drinking Bud Light or Bud Light Platinum, stuff like that, like I cringe and I can't believe that I ever thought that stuff tasted good.
Yeah, it's just trash. Is what it is.
Yeah, you brought up Fat Tire. I remember in Michigan when Fat Tire finally made it to our state. That was, I don't even know, Webby, what, six years ago maybe? I was so excited. I was like, yes, finally it's here. And I feel like that was right at the beginning of this tidal wave of just availability of craft beers from all over the country in Michigan. And then it's funny, I left Michigan to go to Florida 4 years ago, and I feel like the same thing has happened within the last 3 years in Florida. Now it's just an onslaught of all these different great beers from across the country, all making its way to Florida as well, which is cool.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting in Texas. Like, I know that per capita, I think Texas ranks like 48 for breweries. Because there's so much ridiculous legislation that's here right now. I know that it's, there's like a PAC committee out there trying to lobby, the state legislature to be able to relax the beer laws and not have everything be kind of owned by the distributorships that are out there. So, I mean, hopefully that they free things up, but Houston, obviously it's the fourth largest city in the country, but
Wow.
breweries in the greater Houston area, which is, I mean, there's all from St. Arnold's, which is one mid-sized craft brewery of the year at the Great American Beer Fest, to where I just had an event this past weekend. It's called Sigma Brewing Company, and it's just I think it's like a 3 or 4 pot, just small little, but they turn out some amazing products. So,
that's
good
pretty
to
cool.
see.
Yeah,
it's fun to be a part of, for sure.
I heard the brewers or owners of Jester King probably 4 or 5 years ago interviewed on the Brewing Network, and they talked about a lot of the legislation that takes place in the state of Texas when it comes to alcohol and how it's still a little behind the times. Florida is not that far in front of it, but Michigan, I feel like they've come to modern times when it comes to beer and liquor laws, which is nice for them.
But yeah, Eddie and I are doing a pickleball tournament in Grand Rapids next month, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but Grand Rapids is known as Beer City.
There's some names I'm sure you've heard of, like Founders. They're out of Grand Rapids.
Yeah, Founders. Yeah.
Yep.
Breakfast stout. I mean, that's probably one of my
Oh,
favorite
yeah.
stouts out there. Just drink that in the winter and enjoy yourself.
Yep, I love breakfast stout.
Yep.
Don't they have like a Kentucky? Don't they have like a new line, like a Kentucky breakfast stout? And there's like another one as well.
Yeah, so there's two that are very, very popular. They're very rare because they only release them in limited batches. But there's the Kentucky Breakfast Stout, KBS, and then CBS, which is the Canadian Breakfast Stout.
That's right.
Yep, and both are amazing.
Didn't you actually do a video of the Canadian breakfast stout?
I did. Actually, if you click right about there, you will see when I tried Canadian Breakfast Stout for the first time ever, and I absolutely loved it. Sorry, spoiler alert for those that haven't seen the video yet.
Yeah.
So what is one aged in like Kentucky bourbon barrels and the other one's like Canadian whiskey? What's the difference, you know?
Something like that. The Canadian one, I think it's in the bourbon barrels, but there's like maple syrup
Oh, okay. That
in
makes
there
sense.
as well, something like that. But it's delicious. I personally prefer CBS over the KBS, but they're both pretty great.
Nice.
Yeah. So Andrew, this is your time to plug whatever you want to plug on the show, whatever you're into, man. Here's your chance.
Okay, yeah. Pickle and Pints started in Houston, Texas, 2018. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, just Pickle and Pints. Made it easy. There wasn't too much competition out there. So basically, you show up. I've got it's like a running registration platform where you can just literally just go either on Facebook and Instagram. I've always got the next link that you can click there. You pay the registration fee, and then you show up the day of the event. They're usually 3 hours long, which I found is kind of the sweet spot for people to hang out and hydrate and then dehydrate and then play some pickleball. So yeah, it comes with a free beer. I've always got raffles that I do with some, sometimes it's paddles, sometimes it's paddle covers, different things with balls. So show up, hang out, and it's always at a brewery. Locally here in Houston, I've actually started reaching out to some places in Austin and getting a pretty warm reception there as well. So more to come as we kind of travel about. And, my motto is kind of have nets, we'll travel. So, it's so much fun. There's always so much interest with the whole pickleball thing, and obviously, pairing it with craft beer it's been a home run so far.
Nice, man. Well, for all the links that you mentioned, we'll go ahead and throw below in the comments. Andrew, we want to thank you so much for spending tonight with us, man. This was a great time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys for reaching out to me. It was definitely unexpected, but I'm glad that we can make this happen. It's been great.
Yeah, this has been great. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. And Eddie, we've always talked about taking our podcast on the road.
Yeah.
I foresee a trip to Texas sometime and checking out this Pickle and Pints thing.
I agree, man. I think I need to head over the Gulf of Mexico over to Houston there and check this out. I think it would be a great time. And
we'd love to have you guys. I mean, Houston's a great place. There's so much to do, so much to eat, and plenty to drink. So it'd be awesome to see you guys down here.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Andrew. We do very much appreciate it. As you guys know, you can always follow us on Twitter and Instagram. If you have any feedback, throw in the comments below. Download the Anchor app and leave us a voice message. It's very likely that we'll be able to play it on our next podcast if you do. And we want to thank you very much for spending the evening with us. And on that note, I'm Eddie.
And until next time, this is Webby, not Eddie, signing off.
See ya.
See you guys.
And for the folks that are listening to our show in reverse, number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, 9.